Stop for a second and think about the absolute strangest coincidence in human history. Imagine you are playing a massive global game of civilization strategy. You drop groups of humans onto completely different continents. They have no phones, no internet, no mail system. They will never meet. They will never speak to each other. Their lives couldn't be more different. Their food, their weather, their languages, totally separate. But then someone dies. And somehow, across thousands of miles and thousands of years, these totally disconnected people come up with the exact same incredibly weird idea. Hey, let's keep the body. We aren't talking about simple burials. We're talking about complex, difficult, sometimes absolutely gruesome scientific processes to stop nature in its tracks and preserve a human being forever. We call it mummification. Why? Why was the human race simultaneously obsessed with fighting decay? Was it fear of being forgotten? Was it deep love? Or was it a literal belief that if the body disappears, the person is gone for good? Today, we're going on a world tour of the dead. We're going way beyond King Tut to look at how, and more importantly, why, cultures across the globe turned their loved ones into mummies. The ancient Egyptians didn't see death as the end. It was more like a really intense immigration process to the next life, the field of reeds. But there was a catch, a huge one. They believed your soul had different parts. Two main ones were the Ba, your personality, which could fly around during the day, and the Ka, your life force. At night, these soul parts needed a home base to return to. That home base was your physical body. If your body rotted away in the sand, game over. Your soul is homeless and ceases to exist. That is a terrifying thought. So, they turned preservation into an industrial science. It took 70 days. It involved creepy hooked tools to pull brains out through noses, removing the messy internal organs except the heart. You needed that for the final judgment. And then the secret weapon, natron. Natron is a super salty natural substance found in dry lake beds. They'd bury the body in this stuff for over a month to suck out every drop of moisture, turning the person into incredibly durable human jerky. Then, hundreds of yards of linen wrapping, resins, and boom, you're ready for eternity. We are heading to the Atacama Desert in Chile, the driest place on Earth. Here, we find the Chinchorro culture. And here is the mind-blowing part. The Chinchorro were making mummies 2,000 years before the Egyptians. They are the oldest artificially created mummies in the world, dating back over 7,000 years. But the why here is totally different than Egypt. The Chinchorro were simple fishermen. They didn't have giant pyramids or complex hierarchies. In Egypt, if you couldn't afford the deluxe mummification package, too bad for your soul. But for the Chinchorro, it was democratic. Everyone got mummified. Men, women, the elderly, and sadly even babies and fetuses. It seems their motivation wasn't about a complex afterlife journey, but about deep emotional grief. The Atacama is so dry that bodies don't decompose naturally. They just dry out. Archaeologists think the Chinchorro people saw their dead loved ones just lying there, looking sort of the same and couldn't bear to let them go. So they started helping the process along. Their method was artistic, to put it mildly. They would often take the body apart, clean the bones, reinforce the skeleton with sticks so it wouldn't fall apart, and then stuff the skin with plant fibers and ash to give it shape. Then they'd cover the whole thing in clay and paint it black or red. They created statues out of their ancestors, and they didn't bury them deep in tombs. They likely kept them nearby, in their homes as part of the family. Let's stay in South America but jump forward in time and up in altitude. We're looking at the massive Inca Empire. If the Egyptian mummies were hidden away and Chinchorro mummies were kept close for comfort, the Inca royal mummies were, well, they were VIP party guests. For the Inca, death was just a change of address. If you were an emperor and Sapa Inca, dying didn't mean you stopped being powerful. Your mummy still owned your palaces and your lands. Your servants still cared for you every day. The Inca method relied on the environment. They used the freezing cold air of the high Andes Mountains combined with the blazing high altitude sun. It was basically natural freeze drying. They would arrange the body in a seated fetal position, treat the skin with herbs and sometimes corned beer, chicha, and wrap them in gorgeous textiles. The result was incredibly lifelike. But the why is the best part. These mummies were active members of society. During major festivals, like the Festival of the Sun, they would parade the mummies of past kings through the streets on litters. The current living emperor would go visit his dead dad's mummy to ask for advice on warfare or politics. They would bring the mummies food, offer them beer, and swat flies away from their faces. They were the immortal leaders of the empire. Now, we're heading to the mountains of Benguet in the Philippines to meet the Ibaloy tribe. This is where things get incredibly intense. If you thought the other methods were grueling, the Ibaloy method of creating fire mummies is next level because the process started before the person died. When an elder or a person of high status knew they were dying, they would begin drinking a super salty solution. This started the dehydration process from the inside out while they were still alive. Once they passed away, the hard work began. The community would clean the body and place it in a seated position strapped to a chair. They would then place the body over a low, smoldering fire. They weren't cooking the body, they were smoking it, like curing ham. This smoking process would go on for weeks, sometimes months. The goal was to totally dry out the flesh and harden it, protecting it from insects and decay. The smoke also turned the skin a dark, leathery brown. Why go through this agonizingly long process? The Ibaloy believed that if the body was successfully preserved, that ancestor became a guardian spirit for the whole village. They were placed in hollowed-out logs and tucked into secret caves high in the cliffs, where some still sit today, watching over their descendants for centuries. Look at the environment these mummies rest in. It's a brutal process to think about, but it was an act of supreme respect to turn someone into an eternal guardian. Let's jump to a tiny island chain off the coast of Africa, the Canary Islands. Before the Spanish arrived, these islands were inhabited by a mysterious group of people called the Guanches. The Guanches are fascinating because they were isolated on these islands for a long time, yet their mummification practice looks suspiciously similar to the Egyptians' elite package. Like the Egyptians, they made a small incision in the abdomen to remove the organs that cause rot. They would wash the body thoroughly with salt water and then rub it down with a mixture of animal fats, herbs, and tree resins to seal the skin like varnish. But then, instead of linen, they used what they had handy. They wrapped the bodies tightly in layers of finely tanned goat skin. The more important you were, the more goat skins you got wrapped in. They would then hide these mummies in the many cool, dry volcanic caves that dot the islands. Why did they do it? It seems to be about hierarchy and lineage. It was mostly the menses, kings, and nobles who got this treatment. It was a way of physically solidifying their right to rule and honoring their direct connection to the gods. Our final stop is Papua New Guinea to look at the Anga tribe. I saved this for last because this isn't ancient history. This practice was happening right into the 20th century. Similar to the fire mummies of the Philippines, the Anga used smoke. But their technique was visually very different. When an important warrior or leader died, they wouldn't be buried. They were placed in a specialized basket or chair and suspended over a smoking fire pit. The villagers would keep this fire going day and night for over a month, ensuring the smoke thoroughly dried the body. But they didn't stop there. Once the body was fully cured, they would coat the entire mummy in red clay. This clay acted as a sealant to keep bugs and moisture out, but it also gave them a striking, vivid red appearance. Why? Protection. These red clay mummies weren't hidden away. They were taken up to high cliffs overlooking the village and propped up to look down on the living. They were sentinels. The belief was that the spirits of these warriors would stay attached to these preserved bodies and defend the village from enemies or bad spirits. It's a striking image, a line of red ancestors on a cliff edge, guarding their grandchildren. So, what have we learned on this morbid world tour? We've seen people stuffed with grass in Chile, freeze-dried in Peru, smoked over fires in the Philippines and Papua New Guinea, and packed with salt in Egypt. The how is different everywhere, depending on the climate and the tools they had. But the why is almost always the same. Whether it was to ensure the soul had a house, to keep a beloved family member nearby, to ask a dead king for advice, or to turn a warrior into a village guardian, it all comes down to connection. Humans are the only animals that know we are going to die. And the hardest thing for us to accept is that the people we love, the leaders we respect, just disappear. Mummification wasn't about being creepy. It was an act of defiance. It was ancient cultures looking at death and saying, "No, you don't get to take them completely. We are keeping this part." It's a powerful, sometimes gruesome testament to the fact that we have always struggled to let go. Thanks for watching this journey into the past. If you enjoyed this weird history trip, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.